Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Spar&Brawl. So we all remember last year, beginning of the pandemic, or even maybe a little bit before that, oil prices started going down, and they actually reached a point where they were negative. So they would actually pay you to take a barrel of oil, from what I understood correctly. But anyway, now a year later, they've reached a one-year high. So Sam, tell us a little bit what's behind these developments with the oil prices.
Yeah, it was interesting. Oil prices went higher than $60 per barrel. There were a few factors behind this. Um, First, let's talk about economic factors, more or less. Economic factors were the Chinese recovery, which was far better than expected, which led to a far more economic activity and more human activity that needs oil to be based as a fuel, as energy. Oil ships, I think, I mean, there were reports that they were 6 times or 5 times higher than oil shipments to China were 6 times or 5 times higher than they were in like same time last year, if I'm not mistaken. So there was a huge increased economic activity in China and some parts of the world. A lot of investors were also talking about the fact that there is so much hope and people are focused on positivity and focused on end of lockdowns because of vaccines and stuff. And that's also another factor that this positive outlook of future is another factor that is pushing up the prices, which he, by the way, he pointed out that may be a fantasy, right? May be a may We may face further lockdown if there is a, let's say, a significant evolution in the virus or something. Another factor was the a slow. Well, a lot of people were hoping American government would act much quicker in returning to the deal with Iran, and Iranian oil would flood back to the market. And while Iranian oil sales has increased significantly, like 5, 6 times what it was a couple of months ago, it hasn't. America hasn't returned to the deal, and Iranian oil sales haven't really been significantly increased in a way that affects the market. So there was this expectation that there will be an extra supply of oil that didn't happen. So that led to higher prices of oil as well. But the real factor that is behind this is a deal that the political grouping OPEC Plus has made to cut supply in a significant way, to push prices up, to reduce supply, so the demand goes up. And basically, they I mean, it's been very successful in terms of they've planned to cut certain amount of barrels, and they did that. But this hasn't been done uniformly. A lot of countries, over I think 50% of the countries part of this deal in OPEC Plus, and they haven't complied fully with this. Mostly African nations, I think Sudan, Nigeria, other countries, they've sold and produced more than they should have based on the deal. How and Saudis have made up for it by basically cutting around 37 million barrels of oil more than they should have. So they made up for it by cutting their own production. But the African overproduction is nothing compared to the overproduction that is done by Russia. I think one African country's overproduction and oversupply was 8% of production of Russia in a day. So that, and these countries are extremely poor, so it's very hard for them to cut supplies and cut productions. I mean, Russia is not the richest country in the world, but it's far richer than these nations. So Russia is the one that is basically doing the majority of the overproducing and oversupplying. And but Saudis don't put any pressure on Russia because they can't. They let them get away with it completely. And soon we are going to have another OPEC plus meeting, and that's going to be very tense probably, because now that the prices have gone up. And now there are reports that stockpiles of oil around the world have hit a 5-year low. So everywhere people are running. For example, one of the reasons that the oil prices became negative last year was the fact that U.S. stockpiles were basically full. There was no place to, like, if you bought oil, there was no place to store it, right? Now the stockpiles uh, have significantly lowered. So Russia is going to push for more supply. Russia is going to push for higher targets, but at the same time, Saudis, they're not going to be happy with that, because not just for themselves, by the way, because they understand that higher supplies means lower prices for them and other Arab nations that are far closer to Arabia than they are to Russia, or African nations with significant Muslim populations that are far closer to Saudi Arabia than they are to Russia. So it's going to be a interesting next next few months, because nobody knows what's going to happen with these vaccine rollouts, what's going to happen with economic activity, and nobody knows who's going to be more successful, Russia or Saudi, in trying to control the flow of the production.
But that's interesting that the Saudis have agreed to do this, because I recall a few months ago hearing the argument that the Saudis are the ones who can afford the price of the oil in a way to go the lowest because of the way that they extract it and the extracting process being the cheapest. But perhaps Russia is also in a position to have its prices a bit lower and still survive. And of course, the Saudis need the money for everything else. It's just I remember hearing that for them, it's not the worst case scenario comparing to some other countries where it costs more for them to extract oil.
No, no, yeah, both Russia and Saudi are one of the cheaper places to produce oil compared to the US. That's why they, especially compared to shale, gas extraction process and all that. But I guess the question is, where do they exactly stand? And Saudis have a lot of financial problems right now, and so do, to be honest, Russians. And they are both looking for markets and bigger sales. So kind of makes sense, I suppose, in a way.
Yeah, no,
Um,
this is very
yeah,
interesting.
and to be honest, when you like Saudis, whenever they cut production, I guess they kind of make up for the amount of oil sold through the
Mhm.
higher value. So that's good for them. Um,
And I also wonder if this added anything to it, because Biden a few weeks ago, he, I think, officially canceled the Keystone XL pipeline, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
pretty much the pipeline that was supposed to bring oil from the Canadian tar sands into the US, and from there, I guess, to be distributed either in the US or probably be sold elsewhere, because the US wouldn't need that. I wonder if that contributed a bit as well. And yeah, I didn't actually follow up on that news so much. This pipeline used to be big, so I wonder if this kind of means just another pretty much, just really an end to the Canadian tar sands, because as people may know, Canadian tar sands are much more expensive to extract. Apparently, it's not even worth it if oil is $100 per barrel. So I wonder if that also was another sign that okay, there's going to be less oil in the market. Well,
yeah, yeah. No, it makes sense that that one didn't go through. Even Obama
yeah,
had basically paused it, but Trump, in a spite, in a
yeah,
Obama's policies could be, all of them are rooted in what he did. I'm gonna do the opposite.
yeah. No,
So yeah.
exactly. Okay, all right. Anything else on the oil prices? So you said there's another OPEC meeting coming up soon, so there should be some more developments
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that.
Hope. Yeah, we'll see what the Russians and Saudis end up doing.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you everybody for watching this video. If you liked it, please make sure to like and subscribe. If you have any comments, criticisms, anything to add to the story, please write in the comment box below, comment section below, and we'll make sure to get to it. So thank you and see you next time.